Welcome to Private Equity Vox. I am Antoine. With 20 years of experience in fund management, I created PE Cube to provide a tailored digital services that matches the ambition of private equity professionals. For the occasion of IPEM Paris 2024, we created, in partnership with IPEM, a special series, IPEM PE Hub. In this episode, we explore the theme of the upcoming IPEM Wealth in Cannes next January by asking our guests their thoughts on the democratization of the private equity industry. Join us to dive in those 3 inspiring days in Paris, gathering the private equity community, discover the perspectives of our guests, and let's cross our opinions of our vibrant industry. Antoine Colson, CEO and Managing Partner of IPEM. What is your perspective on the democratization of private equity?
The first thing I would say is it's something that we won't avoid. It's like a running train the industry cannot avoid or look at as if it wasn't around. I think it's clearly a strong trend, and it will only accelerate in the coming years. I think for example, the regulators, governments, they all want retail savings to be invested in the real economy. So that's something big coming up that everyone involved in the industry must be aware of. But there are many challenges on the road. First, we need the general public to have just an idea and understand what private capital is really about and how it works. And second, the private capital industry, GPs themselves, have to innovate a lot. They have to find the right solutions, design the right products, get the right funds on the market, and there's no one-size-fits-all products to address the needs of the retail investor. So I think it's a big challenge. It's a very complex universe. It will be highly regulated, and so but it's so promising and so obvious that it's right at the corner that there's a lot to learn about and work about together, and that's exactly what we'll be doing at IPEM Cannes next January with the IPEM Wealth launch next year.
Jean-Philippe Richaud, CIO and co-founder of Swen Capital Partners. What is your perspective on the democratization of private equity?
So it's a very important topic at the moment in the market. We see most of institutionals and asset managers willing to address the mass market and unité de compte in France and life insurance driven products for other countries. Clearly, the difficulty is partly on the regulatory part, since selling a private market product to non-professional investor is something more with more constraints. In the meantime, we have the feeling, and we see that private individuals are looking for new product and want also to participate to the transformation of our economies through private markets. And so, at the moment, we see many initiatives. The difficulty, as we speak, is that there is quite a different approach regarding ESG and extra-financial criteria when speaking about private individuals. For most of them, they are less aware of financial practices, and they may have a feeling of bullshitting, sorry for the word, when we speak about ESG, when usually institutional investors are more advanced on these topics, and you may have some not conflict of interest but different approach when you speak to an institutional, depending of the situation. If he addresses institutional allocation, clearly ESG impact are key in the reflection, in the analysis. when you speak to the private wealth or the private individuals allocation, you rely on people who for who the question is less important, because the background of the final client is less important, and so it's probably a major issue at the moment to reconcile the institutional and private individual management around this topic of ESG.
What about liquidity there?
Yeah, liquidity for sure has always been an important topic for private markets. At Swen, we try to put in place product where we duplicate what we do for institutional clients. So it means there is no major issue regarding liquidity. We tend to invest in the same way for private individuals or for institutional clients, and we tend to address in the same way the liquidity perspective. So the difficulty is to avoid doing very specific things only for private individuals, where you may have some liquidity issues at the end, because it's small tickets, it's very specific situation where a secondary player may not have the same interest. So we try to do very basic things or very homogeneous things, so that at the end of the day, if we don't have the liquidity, natural liquidity by exiting the asset, we find a good perspective with secondary players who will have the same appetite for our assets in private individual pocket than for the assets in the institutional pockets.
Helena Tishansky, partner at Esling Capital. What is your perspective on the democratization of private equity or retailization?
It has a great future. It has a great future because a lot of players in Europe and America have understood that it is a product which is well understood by the public. So as the listed companies have been accepted by the public in the last 50 years, private equity will be accepted by the public in the coming years. And so what is a very positive sign is that it is a move towards more liquidity, as we have said earlier, which is the key to have a private equity industry very mature and solid for the future.
Julien Godard, senior partner at Elveston Capital. What is your perspective on democratization in private equity?
Democratization is a key driver in private equity. It requires a lot of learning experience from the subscriber to understand what is private equity, and this is quite the main difficulty there. The other thing that is key is there is, let's say, a digital revolution where you didn't have real product for private equity investors 10 years ago. Now you have a lot of offers that have been created thanks to the digitalization of the subscription process, for example, that created the scalability that didn't exist in the past. My view is democratization will not be with only dedicated product for retail investors, but product where you will mix institutional investor and retail investor in the same strategy, a more convergence than the democratization. But it's already quite big. In France, for example, retail investors represent 20% of the capital raise, and it's bigger than banks and insurance. Internet here is disrupting the value chain and squeezing traditional investor with more direct access to the assets.
Boris Bakesh, a partner at C4 Venture. What is your perspective on democratization of private equity?
I think it's the course of history. It needs to happen. It has happened for the public markets. It will happen for the private markets, definitely. And I think we start to see it with some asset classes which are very, very attractive intellectually, right? For massive audiences, like for the VC ecosystem, which is a small asset class, you start to see a lot of people, in the retail space, being attracted to those exciting stories, and therefore trying to get some exposure through platforms, through new types of players, which can help them get attuned to that. So that's how many people are getting first exposed to private equity. They're getting exposed through VC because of the attractiveness that it represents. I think it's the course of history. There's going to be lots of mistakes and back and forth along the way, but on the long run, I clearly see it happening. With all the risk and all the things that the regulation that needs to come into play.
Stephanie Hospital, one ragtime. What is your perspective on democratization?
Well, this is our focus. I mean, as for One Ragtime, since day one, we've been operating as a venture, as a platform, enabling our investors to access to investment opportunity that we select. I mean, we're a venture fund, we invest on behalf of our investors and we represent our investors, but with a way that we can provide fully flexible access to the information, the reporting, the evaluation of the company. So it's not rocket science. Huh? It's just making sure that you can deliver the best online experience. What is sure is that we need to democratize more this asset class, as all the people here are fishing the same people. I mean, institutional, large bank. What we need to have is to access to the retail industry, to the retail people, to the people, you and I, who can allocate maybe 5K, 10K, 100K to this asset class, and to have the feeling that you are nurturing the real economy rather than being in some money or even crypto or stuff that you don't understand. But at the end of the day, what we want to be is to be a game changer in the way people access to that asset class. Because as for us, as French people, as European, we need to be attractive to fuel the innovation, to be more competitive in 2050 and change the world and make sure that, yes, we tackle the real societal climate issues.
Thierry Chignon, managing partner at Merieux Equity Partners. What is your perspective on the democratization of private equity?
The democratization of private equity involves making this asset class more accessible, of course, to individual investors, traditionally dominated by institutional investors and wealthy individuals. Of course, for this shift, there are several factors, including regulatory changes, technological advancement, and increased interest that are going to be important. On the benefit side, it's pretty self-evident. Increased access to individuals investors benefiting from higher returns on diversification. And there is a regulatory support. A lot of efforts have been performed by regulators, such as the SEC, or in the US, or in the European Union LTIF2 regulation that have included some safeguard clauses. There are some challenges. Illiquidity and opacity. Clearly, private equity investments are less liquid and could be perceived as more opaque compared to public markets. And there is a strong education need. Retail investors need to understand the complexity and the risk associated with private equity, which differ significantly from public security. Overall, while democratization offers opportunities for individual investors, it will require careful consideration and education to navigate the associated risk effectively.
Jean-Philippe Bouage, partner at Rage Capital. What is your perspective on the democratization of private equity?
So we have a group specialized here at Rage Capital working very actively in this space. Super interesting, but on the long run, what it feels is that it's going to mark a revolution in financial inclusion. I mean, you're just opening like a super asset class to everybody. So basically what we're going to leave is a pure, what's going to require, it's a pure paradigm shift in financial literacy and regulatory frameworks. It's going to reshape the industry. I mean, happy to see that GPs right now are playing the game and reshaping their offer towards those private wealth channels and individuals, not only private wealth, but everybody. So again, it's not only dedicated to the wealthiest; it's dedicated to everybody. So to the to the 100%. It's going to have an impact in terms of financial inclusion. Again, it's going to have an impact on the way we perceive financial institutions. They're going to become probably financial mentors or even curators. You're going to have to explain what it is. So this you're going to have to explain it at school, but also, the big asset managers will have to invest in education, educating their future investors. So it's going to be a super nice and very interesting revolution. Impact also with probably the regulators and watchdogs. You're going to have to allow that, but also to improve the framework. This is my second pick or bet. The third one is probably, and I'm pretty sure my friends in the law firms and advisors will like that, but we're going to have to be much more creative in terms of structuring hybrid investment vehicle, because not only everybody, you and I, are going to invest, but the institution will keep on putting money in this asset class. So we're going to have to be, I think, more creative on the structure we propose to the market for gathering all these investors. And voila.
Charles Soula, country head France, Neuberger. What is your perspective on democratization of private equity?
I think they're good. It's still the very beginning of something big. Hopefully, France, Germany, Italy, the UK, and others are going to find a common ground. Because as of today, we're all struggling with the fact that, those countries are very different regulators, fine. We have the EU. The LTIF I think it's a great vehicle, but it's not enough because all the countries have their local habits, culture, specificities, regulations. But we're going to get there. LTIF 2.0, evergreen, fully funded strategies. It's just the beginning of something that's going to be very interesting for sure.
Marc Lasserre, founder of SO Capital Advice. What is your perspective on democratization in private equity?
Well, I think it's an area of development for us going forward. As I mentioned, I think that through the secondary, we say that we enable people to enter into the asset class. So I think private equity investment was reserved to people that were able to hold their assets for a long period of time. If we develop the secondary market, if we enable people to have liquidity over, we say, a period of 3 to 4 years, maybe a bit more, I think that we could enable people to invest in the private equity asset class. We see now several people proposing to invest in private assets with very low amount, less than 1,000 euros. So, once again, there is no reason to believe that the democratization will not be enlarged going forward.
Thank you for listening to Private Equity Vox. In this episode, we had a chance to discuss what is the perspective of the democratization of private equity. Globally, it's definitely an irresistible trend, opening private capital towards individuals to help them to take part of financing economic growth. But it comes with clear implications and requirements. The first one being easiness and liquidity of this democratization. Second one is finding the right way to adapt investors' relationship towards this new audience. And the third implication comes to regulators. There's a requirement on their side in order to enable these irresistible trends, bringing clarity and stability. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it on your networks, subscribe and leave us a kind comment. I'm Antoine Sage and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of Private Equity Vox for another tête-à-tête with a key player in private equity.